Welcome back to Anxiety and Depression Adventures, episode 7, which is about things to avoid. Which, if any of you have been watching my series so far, you'll kind of think, didn't he say somewhere back then to not avoid the pain and the anxiety or the depression or whatever? And I'm not contradicting myself. I just couldn't think of a better title. But there are certain habits, be it diet, behavior, that sort of thing, which will exacerbate your situation. And I believe this applies equally to depression as much as it does to anxiety, though I'm a bit more familiar with the anxiety part, though I have had a few bouts of depression, which have extended on for months at a time. I think these relate to both. Some of these tips, in fact, this entire video is pure tips, not just educational sharing, all pertain to things that will help maintain the underpinnings of a healthy lifestyle and a healthy body, physically and hopefully mentally as well. Because our behaviors have an impact on our emotions, which in turn have an impact on our state of mental health, and then it's just a circular thing that keeps going around and around and around among those three items. So if we can touch on the behavioral part, then it ought to have an impact on our emotional part, our brains and how they're wired for habits and that sort of thing, and our physical feeling of well-being and being in our bodies, and then back to our behaviors. And at least that's one theory anyway. So let me talk about 4 items that are on here that I've just brainstormed. One is your diet, or what you put into your body. Okay, I'm just labeling this first tip uppers. Okay, stimulants is probably a better term to use. If you are someone that is consuming more than 2 cups of regular coffee a day, caffeinated coffee or other drinks, this is going to stimulate your nervous system. And for most of us, especially here in North America, that's a pretty standard drug that we all reach for first thing in the morning. And for some of us, if we didn't get a good night's sleep, well, we're just going to keep reaching all day long. Well, that caffeine is going to build up in our system and make us really kind of a lot of the time. So that is very close to anxiety, and we don't really want to do that. So I personally only have 2 cups of coffee in the day, one first thing in the morning, which may actually be somewhat related to why the mornings are tough for me, and then one I sort of sip at throughout the afternoon. Now, tea is an interesting one, and this is something my sister-in-law shared with me. I don't know if it's scientifically true or not, but many of us have been told that tea actually contains more caffeine than a regular cup of coffee. However, I always question that because caffeine never did anything for me. Tea with caffeine never did anything for me as far as making me more alert, or in the same way a cup of coffee would. And what my sister-in-law told me was that we don't metabolize the caffeine in tea as easily as we do the caffeine in coffee. So hence it doesn't actually stick with us. It tends to, you kind of rent the tea, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's true or not, but just food for thought. Same thing goes for colas, energy drinks in particular. Boy, oh boy, those things are jam-packed with caffeine. That's the whole point. So if you're already in an agitated state, the last thing you need is something like that flowing into your tummy and making you even more feeling. Smoking. Now, I am a smoker, and I have been for about a decade. And I have asked doctors many times whether or not tobacco, nicotine, and all the other carcinogens that are in those death sticks could be contributing to my anxiety situation, and they've all said no. They said they would not. That said, I have, on the advice of my family physician, been attempting to cut back in recent weeks. And what I have noticed, even just removing one cigarette from what I would normally smoke while walking my dog Abby, is the anxiety levels seem to be on some days a little bit less. So I'm a little curious on that one. But one way or another, nicotine is a stimulant. So it would fall into the same category as say, caffeine or whatever. Another one are what we'll just call recreational drugs, depending on which country you live in, what state in the U.S. you're in. Marijuana, weed, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of debate out there as to whether or not even medically approved marijuana is a good soothing agent or similar to a tranquilizer for anxiety. I'm on the fence on it. I've never tried it, to be honest with you. But some professional feedback that I've received from my psychiatrist and psychologist is that if you're getting into the realm of recreational drugs in general, then you are trying to avoid the root cause of your depression or anxiety. And as I said in my previous video, that's the absolute opposite of what you actually want to do along your adventurous journey to feel better. So there's one aspect of it. The other aspect, of course, is addiction to it, which could easily go for tobacco as well. These are all things I think are pretty common knowledge, and I think you would agree. Though it's awfully hard to overlook the temptation to go down that path, but it's just going to add another layer on top of a layer on top of another layer that you're already dealing with, that you're going to have to come back from. Because wouldn't it be great one day to go through your day without taking a pill or taking a puff or taking a drink or whatever? Alcohol, there's another one. Now, I've mentioned before in videos that I do consume a glass of red wine in the evening. I'll be honest, part of it is because once I've run out of my tranquilizers, it's the only thing left for the final hours of the day to keep me calm. I do not drink excessively. I don't drink during the day. I don't get drunk, none of that stuff. And I, delude myself by saying, well, red wine contains certain elements that are supposed to be healthy for you in moderation. But we all know the path to alcoholism, and that's not a path that we really need right now. I think those of us in watching these videos and are in this scenario, we don't need another addiction that ultimately is going to be possibly more damaging to us than what we're already going through. So that's it for substances that we consume. As far as behaviors go, I would say the best tip, or one good tip, is also been mentioned previously, is maintain the same bedtime and wake up time each day. Today I had just another horrific day, and the whole reason for it is because I slept in 20 minutes later than when I told myself I wanted to get up this morning. And I don't know if it's because inside I'm beating myself up over something as simple as that, or what it is, but maintaining your body clock, getting sufficient levels of rest each night, that's extremely important. One area I haven't talked about too much are quick fixes, or things where people want your money and they're telling a story, say on the internet, about some program that they went through on DVD or Blu-ray discs, or I don't know what it is, and for $25.99 a month or a one-time fee of $200, you too can be released from this feeling of anxiety and or depression or whatever. Oh, I should note, by the way, alcohol actually is a depressive substance. So while you might find it a little bit On the high side, when you're drinking a lot, the residual effects of alcohol actually encourage depression. Sorry to get off track. But anyway, if this is such a widespread issue in Western society today, much like cancer and other really debilitating and fatal illnesses, if anyone's got a magic button to press that sounds so simple and doesn't take hardly any time whatsoever, and they're charging you money for it without well, even if they fully describe everything there is to all of their steps in it, please, for goodness sakes, put your credit card back in your wallet. You're just wasting your money. There is too much excellent information available through the internet that is free, that has been proven scientifically, that there are testimonials on, that you can rely upon as a possible path to take. I don't think there is one single way to become anxiety free or depression free. I think a lot of it depends on a bunch of trial and error, a ton of patience on your part, a willingness to stick with it, a belief that you are worth the effort. I don't believe there's anything out there other than a scam that you need to actually pay money for to get access to in our mental health system. So anytime you see these pop-up ads, please, feel free to take a look at them. I don't care. Lord knows I have. But really, I just would not go there. I think you're setting yourself up for the quick fix of our society that is simply not there. So those are my thoughts on that. I've hammered this next point, this next tip home many, many times. I'm not saying I do it perfectly or anything of the sort, but avoiding the pain is not going to help. Yes, you want to manage your symptoms to a level where you're functional, but you can't drown out the symptoms. There's the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, that implies you need to go through something in order to be stronger at the other end, at least the way I look at it. If you're over medicating, if you are spending all day in bed depressed, if you have social anxiety, can't face going to the mall or whatever, or groups of people, if you have specific triggers that bring on a panic attack or whatever, you need to gauge, okay, how ready am I to be exposed to those sorts of things? But by the same token, I do have to realize that the more I avoid those situations, the fewer the opportunities I'm creating for my mind to learn how to deal with them. If you've worked with a psychologist before, a very common therapy treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and one perfect example of it is people that get anxious in a social environment, even if they're not talking to people, like going to the store, they go through over periods of weeks, maybe months, of actually providing themselves with limited levels of exposure to that in an incremental way, which could be as simple as, I'm going to get in the car, I'm going to drive to the parking lot of the grocery store, and that's it for today. And you sit there while you're feeling anxious at that moment in your car, even though you know you're not going in. But you're beginning to acclimatize your body slowly to the feeling that I'm okay, I'm not prompting a panic attack, if you get those, but I'm learning what this feels like, and I know it won't kill me. And then tomorrow I'll come back, and I may just simply do the same thing, or I may get out of my car and stroll near the front door, and then return to my car. So that's CBT type of therapy. So that's something that you can certainly try out. But you don't want to get into the avoidance thing where you're medicating yourself, you're able to sleep all day in bed and isolate yourself away from the people, the things, the job, the work, or whatever, because that is self-defeating in the long run. And my final tip for you is, as I alluded to in the previous episode, the more you get to understand the root cause of what is causing the depression or the anxiety, the more you will begin to be able to identify what are the triggers. And the triggers might be you. The triggers may easily be the subconscious thoughts that your mind generates that are flying so fast through your brain you're only able to catch one or two at a time. Or it could be much like the previous example at the grocery store. It could be, okay, in big crowds or whatever, I get really anxious. I have a panic attack. I'm afraid I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm anxious about the anxiety that could bring on a panic attack. It gets into that level of thing. So, well, depending on what your therapist may recommend to you in your specific scenario, I would, bottom line, become as aware as possible of what are the trigger points. Excuse me. It may be criticism from other people. It may be being around a certain person. It may be placing yourself in a particular circumstance. Be it isolation or just too many people that want you. Could be any number of things. So you want to understand what those triggers are. And even though your therapy may or may not actually encourage you to touch on a trigger as a way to get acclimatized to it, generally speaking, you want to stay away from those triggers. And a lot of them, for me, for example, overbooking myself, my schedule, putting too many things on a task list that I think I'm going to get done in a day, setting too high an expectation for myself, wanting something to be done so perfectly well that way more than what my boss, if I were employed, actually would expect. I know those are the things that set me off. So understanding your triggers and not necessarily, I don't want to say avoid them, but be aware of them. And there may be some days you can handle them, and other days you just can't. And then you can make a choice. So I hope these 4 or 5 tips around consumption of certain foods or drinks, that sort of thing, about jumping on to paid solutions off the internet for relief of what you're going through, about staying away from complete avoidance of it and hiding away from the world, maintaining a regular sleep schedule, avoiding any type of avoidance completely, understanding the root causes of why this is happening to you, and most importantly, being aware through that of what are the triggers that bring on a panic attack, a sense of anxiety, a sense of low self-esteem, or whatever. So, as always, I hope these random thoughts from me have been helpful, and I certainly encourage you and welcome you clicking on subscribe if you want to continue to see these videos, or click on like or leave a comment or whatever you'd like to do somewhere below or above. I think it depends on what platform or computer you're on. Anyway, thank you very much. Remember, you are not alone out there. Don't ever feel that way. And I do hope this series of videos really is at the end of the day, which may not come for months, you will view as an adventure that you went through that indeed did make you a stronger person. Okay? So have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.